Hello there and welcome to Complete Games. I'm James and this is the Explorer Note read-through for Genesis Part 2. If you're new here, then the Explorer Note series is something we've been compiling on the channel for a while now, so if you'd like to learn more about the lore of Ark, then why not consider subscribing for more content from myself. But today we begin the notes from Nida. She's one of the ship's crew members, and as usual we'll break this into two halves, so sit back, relax and enjoy the notes from Nida on Genesis. Perry started in with another sermon about our sacred mission today when she found me modelling creature behaviour for my latest sim. I tried to explain that I was on a break, that I wasn't doing anything wrong, but she wouldn't hear it. As if I haven't had it drilled into my head over and over that the survival of all life from our home world depends on our sacred efforts. I work as hard as anyone on the ship, so why do I keep getting shamed for having a hobby? It's not like a half cycle spent away from soil sampling is going to jeopardise humanity's hopes of re-establishing itself on a new planet. Besides, I know from server logs that Perry played my latest sim, along with most of the crew. What's wrong with dipping out off shift and immersing yourself in some harmless escapism? I used to think it was pathetic that our ancestors couldn't come up with a better name for our homeworld than Earth. But a lifetime spent digging around in synthetic loam kind of makes you appreciate how amazing it must have felt to feel solid ground under your feet. We're told in historical media that people have always dreamed of sailing between the stars. After a few generations of doing just that, I'm here to say their dream is wearing thin. I guess it's like that old saying about the grass looking greener on the next ring. Other people on Earth must have been sure there was a better world out here someplace. Maybe it is out here, but we haven't found it yet. In the meantime, I like to doodle around in the margins of Genesis, so my crewmates can plug into a simulation and experience an actual sunrise now and then. Life on this ship is an endless, monotonous routine. All of us were raised in this place to be drones tending a hive of cocooned future colonists. We've been told everything has to be just right for when it's time for them to hatch and start training for planetfall. So day after day I surface the capillary irrigation systems and monitor trace gas fluctuations in the atmosphere for the good of humanity. I know I should be grateful to even be alive, given that all life on our homeworld went extinct. But I also know I can't be the only crew member who daydreams about faking my own death to escape this tedium, even if that meant hiding in the superstructure for the rest of my days. At least I'd be living for myself. Shame on me, I guess. Working in the dirt was what I was born to do, at least according to my engrammatic aptitude test. An artificial intelligence weighed my soul and decided it saw a future soil scientist. I do have to grudgingly admit I am good at my day job, but my real passion is coding convincingly randomized events and reactive social intelligence simulations. So that's what I'm tinkering with when I'm not feeding soil probe samples into a chromatograph. I know my work to confirm nutrient transport and healthy geochemical cycling by microbial soil communities is an important part of maintaining this vital biological archive of ours. The fate of humanity depends on our success, blah blah blah. It's just that I envy having a kind of freedom people seem to have in the past to follow their dreams, at least according to our library of historical media. I know what I saw, but I don't blame anyone for thinking I made it up. I mean, I do come up with simulated fantasy scenarios in my free time, but that's the thing. If I hadn't been reverse engineering Genesis simulation code, I never would have noticed those anomalies in the system. We've been visited by something transhuman. I saw the evidence inside Genesis. Maybe I shouldn't be leaving a record of this, but I think someone left a superluminal link open back to Arit Prime that one of them used to find us out here. One of the Homo Deus. There, I put a name to it. Guess there's no harm now in admitting that I've been trying to hack my way back into the semi-forbidden catch of information about them in the archive. We weren't kept completely in the dark about our estranged transhuman cousins, but I think there's been a concerted generational effort to repress those memories. Maybe our ancestors were afraid we'd see some appeal in the idea of accelerating our own evolution if we learned about the Homo Deus. If so, that seems silly, because there are killer parsecs between us and the refined xeno material needed to do it. Historical archives say the element war was fought over divergent ideas about how to deal with our polluted biosphere and dwindling resources. Our ancestors in the Terran Federation thought they'd finally found a clean source of power for their grand geoengineering schemes to hack and repair the planet. The United Republic of Earth wanted to hack themselves using the same power and survive by becoming more than human. Neither side was right. Here's how I discovered we'd had a visitor. I noticed a really sophisticated artificial intelligence running in Genesis that wasn't native to our engine, so I boxed it up and plugged myself into that box to say hello. Our intruder turned out to be friendly and curious about me. It called itself HLNA. I asked where it come from, and it told me its creator was what I would have called a Homo Deus. That might have made the hairs stand up on the back of my avatar's neck, if I'd have bothered with that level of simulation. I asked the AI if it had been hiding on board since we launched, and it claimed it had only come online within the last 3,000 cycles or so. But how, I wondered. I asked if that meant his creator was still with us. All I got was some cryptic answer about how she had left part of herself behind as a gift. Then I got kicked from my own sim. After my one quick chat with HLNA, I couldn't seem to track her down again inside the Genesis simulation. It's like she'd learned how to conceal herself since our last encounter. Of course no one believed me. For a while there, I wasn't sure if I believed me. Then glitches started showing up in Genesis. Patching the simulation code seemed like a low priority concern, though it was definitely unusual. But before anyone could address that situation, we started seeing cascading faults in our real world systems. Things got bad enough that we had to evacuate and seal off biomes in the Ford Ring. I'd like to think that my crewmates would circle back to taking my close encounter with a transhuman created artificial intelligence seriously, if there was time or resources to investigate further, but everyone's in full-on disaster mode now. I assumed at first that HLNA was causing the system failures spreading through the rings. We'd been raised to believe that the people had barely escaped an Earth overrun by transhumanism and element pollution. It seemed logical to assume that an AI found embedded in our simulation engine by a transhuman entity would try to sabotage our mission. Now that I'm looking over eyewitness reports from the affected areas, I'm less sure. Why would HLNA contaminate biomes with weird new life forms? How would an artificial intelligence, even one created by a Homo Deus, be able to rearrange the framework of the ship at a molecular level? However and why ever these things are being done, we're in serious trouble. I thought I'd done a good job of firewalling any access points out of Genesis, but clearly I wasn't able to shut out whatever was running wild through our systems. I can't believe this is really happening. We're losing people trying to stop whatever it is that's invading our ship. I want to join the fight to retake the Ford Ring, but I keep getting told I'm needed back here to maintain and monitor our remaining ecosystems for contamination. I know the real reason they don't want me fighting is because in their eyes, I'm still just a kid, but no one would ever know that we had an intruder if I hadn't discovered it. I keep turning that over in my mind while I'm maintaining auto samples or waiting for phase analysis results on soil biota. How and why would a transhuman's artificial intelligence disrupt our shipboard systems? Would this entity really resent our mission enough to reach across thousands of light years and try to scuttle our ship? That just seems unusually vindictive for one of them, especially after all this time. I can't make this make sense. We've all given the Genesis simulations survive as long as you can while taming an unfamiliar and hostile environment scenario a spin, if only to see what it's like for our colonist cargo. One of my more popular sims turned Genesis inside out, with alien magnafauna rampaging throughout a simulated version of our ship's biomes. I never expected to experience something like that at first hand. Aberrant wild creatures are prowling the Ford Ring and tearing anyone apart who dares to enter their territory. Out here in the real world, my crewmates aren't ever going to respawn. I've never felt fear like this before. At least the adrenaline is keeping me hard at work, even though I'm beyond exhausted. I've been able to confirm that the biomes in our ring haven't been contaminated yet, so that's something. They're talking about detaching our ring if things keep getting worse, to try and keep our biomes uncontaminated. I hope it doesn't come to that, but we have to do what we can to preserve the remaining biomes in the face of our rapidly dwindling odds. I've been working on a whole system of backup automation to hopefully keep everything running as long as possible. When I mean if we're all wiped out. Our ship holds the last archival specimens of life from Earth, and there's an extinction level event in progress. I got nauseous just now while I was running the microbial gas exchange modules, because any stupid mistake I make could suffocate all the remaining Terran life forms in the universe. If I forgot to carry a number someplace, it could mean that no flower will ever push up through the soil and bloom again. I have to get this right. I can't keep running through the same research tasks while my crewmates are fighting an invasive force. This morning while I was in the trench checking our irrigation capillaries, I impulsively pried open a hatch and dropped into a drainage and reclamation system. Below the bedrock, there's a maze of pipes and tunnels that extends throughout the entire ship. I used to sneak down there as a kid and wander for kilometres trying to get lost. We had to memorise the schematics for these subsystems as part of our training, in case we had to repair some catastrophic failure deep in the network. I remember resenting all them times I had to draw maps of those tunnels in timed tests, but all that route memorisation may end up saving my sorry life. At any rate, I finally got a first-hand glimpse of what we're dealing with. Not sure how I'll sleep again after experiencing it for myself. They've sealed off the invaded areas of our ship. I still have my clearance to access the maintenance subsystems. I know how to get through a series of airlocks into the other ring without contaminating ours. Once I popped out from under the dirt, I found myself in some kind of unrecognisable surrealist landscape. What could have changed everything there so much, so fast? I was glad I bought a sampling kit, and even more glad I was wearing a clean suit up there. The flora and fauna had been mutated to a point where everything looked potentially lethal, and it was reactive to my presence. Grasses had become these thin tubules with bulb-like structures that undulated hypnotically. I flinched when a stalk brushed my glove and left a sticky residue. Inside my clean suit, I started shuddering all over and wondering why I'd worked so hard to sneak into that place. It's an understatement to say that being in that contaminated Ford ring shook me up. I've spent my whole life trying to simulate alien environments, but the first time I found myself actually inside one, I couldn't wait to escape. I was having a panic attack, a rush of xenophobia and severe vertigo all at once. It was like every cell in my body was screaming that I don't belong there. As soon as I had some samples bottled up, I rushed to get back into the access tunnels to get the hell out of there. That was when I saw one of those things. At a distance, you might mistake it for being a cat. Feline, predatory, but it has strange feathery spines like a venomous tropical fish, and its gaze was weirdly aware. I was afraid to break eye contact while I felt desperately for the hatch. A second and third creature appeared in my peripheral vision as I dove into the tunnel and sealed it tight behind me. And that concludes part 1 of the notes from Nida on the Genesis ship. And of course, we will continue with part 2. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so you don't miss out on the next episode. But until next time, I'm James from Complete Games, and I'll see you.